Alright, it's been quite a journey. We've been installing American Autowire Classic Update Series wire harness from bumper to bumper in Christine, our 56 Bel Air. I've been working on it for 6 or 7 days now, over several different weeks, and I started putting together the video, and it's over 2 hours long because I want to cover everything. So we're going to split this up into 2 parts. This is the first part, and it's going to cover the first half of installing this kit. And if you're interested in seeing this, please stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Restoring Christine. We're on our way. We're up to the last 2 major steps before we get Christine running again. The second to last step we have is going to be the wiring harness. The last step will be the interior. But today that's what we're going to start doing. So the last video that I released was an unboxing of an American Autowire 55 to 56 Chevy passenger car classic update series, part number 500-423. So this is a pre-manufactured kit. It's not a factory correct wiring harness. This is an update. It's got a modern fuse block. It gives you all the links to all the wires. It allows you to run power where you want it, how you want it, and it has additional circuits built in. So if you wanted to run an electric fuel pump, if you had fuel injection, if you had power windows or power seats, it's got all of that built into this system if you want it. So we're gonna get started today, and this is a color by numbers. This is literally going to be every little bag we're going to start with. It's going to be in a certain order that the box tells you what to do. And the first thing we're going to get started with is going to be the fuse block. So let's dive in. So in the box, in the instructions, start installing the kit. And the first one they tell you to start with is bag letter G, the dash harness kit. So I need to pull that out. That was the biggest one. Took it out, and when I did my unboxing video, I didn't bother getting it back in the bag. But there's a fuse block, and there's all the things. So let's go ahead and I'm going to untangle this and see what the instructions in its bag says to do. All right, so in bag G, which came with a bunch of connectors, a bunch of terminal ends, the blocks, came with the wire crimped ends. It came with some hardware here to mount the fuse block. So let's see what it tells us to do. Mount the fuse panel mounting plate. Route fuse panel harness and dash area using original harness clips located at the top of the firewall. Attach the fuse panel to the mounting plate. Make all dash connections as shown in this fuse panel installation sheet. And then starting with bag H, install all other wiring bags per the letter designation on instruction sheets. So, here we go. And they also give you, they show you, there's a place for the turn signal, hazard signal, and there's a recommendation for all the fuses. Circuit ratings, whether they're 10 amp, 15 amp, 5 amp, 30 amp, or what have you. So you can see that what's in this particular harness is going to be from the block, and then there's going to be a terminal end for the headlight switch. There's going to be a terminal end for the rear body, something for the wiper, cluster ground. Then it has the courtesy light, front light, comes out here, and it's going to break off into brake switch. Cluster disconnect. I think this is for the ignition switch. No, let's see. Not sure what that's going to be for, but we'll figure it out. Neutral safety switch, backup switch, radio and battery, engine connection, starter connection, and then VSS connection, and all the heater and radio, glove box, radio, so on and so forth. Blower, courtesy lights. So that's everything that's in this. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start mounting the mount the fuse panel mounting plate, and then we'll start routing things. So on the back of that sheet, they got the mounting plate instructions. So here's a fuse panel. It's got 2 standoffs on it. It's got one here and then one over here, and the plate. So this is going to stand off on the plate. The plate's going to mount onto the firewall. And it's got a hole where there's a hole in the firewall. Then let's see. So we got to figure all this out. They show all the hardware, and they give you all the hardware in this bag. So the existing small hole in and firewall originally for dash pad retaining clip, short 1/4 inch diameter bolt, washers 3/8 inch diameter bolt, existing lower hood hinge bolt location. Now, that's a good question. So I'm wondering if they're expecting you to use the hood hinge bolt to mount this, but that's what it looks like. All right, well, we'll figure it out. All right, I got the plate in, and what it wants you to do is there's a small bolt that goes through the hole where the previous plug for the retainer clip for the firewall pad is or was, and there's a stack of washers they want you to put, and then some nuts to shim it out. But they want the top bolt hole to be the bolt for the hinge, which I don't have my hinges mounted yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this enough to where I know I've got it set up right, so it's going through that little hole. So when I put my hinges on, I'll be able to remember that and then go ahead and tighten it up in the back. Unfortunately, that's just the order I'm going to have to do it in, because my hinges are over there. They need to be painted. I haven't painted them, and today's the day I'm going to start putting this harness in. So we're just going to go with it. All right, before I put this octopus in there, I went ahead and teased out each one of the branch circuits, and I've got them labeled. So there's the panel, fuse panel, and then each one of these I've labeled them. Headlight switch, heater and air, front clip, there's another one back here, the rear clip, then there's a radio, then the heater and AC and all that. I've got all that labeled because they're all specific circuits. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this onto that bracket. Okay, so the fuse panel is in, it's back there, and if all the wires pulled forward. Unfortunately, what it told me to do was go ahead and route this where the original wiring was, but I mean, these instructions are written for a car that's already fully assembled and is like you're now replacing all of your wiring. So when I go to the organization chart, it says first thing is the dash harness kit, and then the second one is the gauge cluster kit. So the gauge cluster, I don't have my gauges in yet. So my gauges, they're still on a bench, and I still need to restore them. So I'm not going to do that, and I don't have my steering column in yet. So I'm trying to get all this wiring in while everything's free. So the next thing is the engine kit, parking lamp, and headlight grommet kit. So we're going to go ahead and start with the engine kit and see where that goes. All right, here's bag J. It's got the terminals in it, and then there's the branch circuit. Let's just go ahead and open up the bag and start looking at the instructions. So here you go. This is going to be a bit of a customization, because it's going to have different look. GM HEI distributor, GM points type distributor. I have an MSD box, so I need to see if what do I need to do differently for that. I'll show you all their terminal ends here. So let me unwrap this bundle and see what it says to do. So right off the bat, step 1, connect large red wire in this kit to 175 amp mega fuse kit using the terminals and shrink wrap tubing found in the alternator pack. All right, well, I did that. Or actually, I opened that pack, and here's Z. It's a mega fuse pack, so there's 275 amp fuses that are in here, and I bridged all of this. I did this because that's one of the things that the instructions told me to do. But then I went back to the instructions and said, okay, now what? And then when it says here, install in this order, let's see, where's Z? Let's see, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, Z. Z is last. Yet, when I go to the engine kit J, first thing it says to do is connect the red wire to that. So all I did was I planned for where I'm going to put it. I'm going to mount this mega mega fuse pack. I'm going to mount it down here, because what it has is it has a wire. It shows a wire going from the alternator to it, and then from it to the fuse panel, and then from it to the starter solenoid. So with all of that, you know, I figure that, all right, that's the home point, so that's the best place for me to put it. I'm going to mount it there. I guess I can mount it now if I wanted to. But yeah, so let me continue with this. Well, I couldn't quite put it where I wanted it. I wanted it right by the fuse panel, but the fender well here, that's not a good angle, but the drill was not going to be able to get down in here in this pocket. I didn't have any room, so I had to put it up here next to the master cylinder. So it's not going to be too bad. It's not as ideal as I would have liked it, but you know, I want it to look like it grew there. So that's where we're going to put it. Let's get started on the next part. So now the next step is for me to hook this 6-gauge wire. It's a bigger wire than what I've ever had, but this goes from the alternator to that mega fuse. And they give you the terminal ends, so they give you these, and they give you a boot for the alternator. So what I need to do is I need to get this mounted to that. I'm not sure if it's going to take some solder or what. I'll read the instructions. So it tells you what to do. Use the 6-gauge, cut it to length, cut a 1/2 inch at either end to expose it, and then it says to crimp and solder a terminal onto the wire. So that's what I'm going to have to do. So I took the wire terminal end and I gooped it up with some flux, soldering flux. I got this stripped back a 1/2 inch. I've got a 1-inch piece of shrink tubing that comes in the kit. And now I'm going to go ahead and crimp this with a vice grip. And then after, I'll heat it up and solder it. So I'm going to use the pinching end of the vice grip to do this. A little bite at a time. So there you go. Look, see that crimp? So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and solder that now. Well, my phone died as I was recording it, but that's how it came out. You can see the soldered end is underneath the shrink wrap, and to do that I used a little mini butane torch and some electrical solder. I just put it up, heated it up with the torch. The flux is already in it. Made sure that the little ferrule was upside down so that the solder, even though the flux should draw it into itself as you heat it, you need to heat up the fitting and the wire. So you're heating the fitting after it's crimped till the wire gets hot, and then you make sure that the wire that you're heating through the fitting is hot enough to when you touch the solder to it, it melts and it'll draw it into that part. So I'll see if I can't find another opportunity to do that, but let me continue on. All right, so now that red positive wire is done, at least on that end that goes to the starter. I've got it with the purple and the yellow wire. So the purple wire and the yellow wire, one is the starter solenoid that is from the ignition switch, and the other is the yellow one goes to the coil. So this is labeled R for resistor. So if you have a resistor ignition, if you still have points and you have a resistor, that's where that would go, from the resistor terminal on the solenoid. But this is all we need to go to the starter, other than the battery connections. So I'm going to just temporarily lay these over there towards the starter. So now with that over there, just tossed over there so I can kind of keep track of where I'm at. This is what's coming through the firewall, and there's 4 wires left. There's one that's the ignition that goes to the coil. There's one that's the tack that goes to the coil, and then there's 2 sending unit wires for the factory sending unit on the dash for the oil pressure light and the temperature light. There's also another wire that's going to come back in. So this wire that goes in from the firewall, this is power. So this is below the mega fuse. And this is going to go to the inside and will connect on the starter circuit. So there's a starter circuit, and I believe that we need to bring that wire into the plug that comes to this one. So that's something that we got to make. And then the other wire set up these, and I teased out 2 wires that weren't needed. There were 2 brown wires, and you can see now there's only 4. There's 4 wires in here. There's 2 that's been pulled out. So you use a little screwdriver or a pick to to depress the tab, and you can pull out the wires. So these are wires that are downstream that I don't need. One of these was for an electric choke, and I don't have a choke on my carburetor. And if I do, it's going to be manual. And then this is a feed for the alternator in case you're running a Delco Remy that has the little plug on the back that has the 2 wires. But I'm running a single wire Power Master, so I don't need either one of those wires. I don't know if I'm going to tease them out of the remainder of the harness. Probably not. But at least coming into the engine bay, I didn't want any wires that just are just hanging around for no need. So let's continue on. So one of the decisions I've got to make sooner rather than later is how I want to route these from left to right. And you know, you've got these wires come out. Some want to go to the coil area, to sensor over here, sensor over there, sensor in the back. You got these things coming to the mega fuse. So I'm trying to keep this clean. There was originally a T-harness in here that came out of the wall and it T'd, and I think I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to try to keep this as simple as possible, but I'm going to tuck my wires tight up underneath here and keep them in the engine bay instead of being back behind the dash. So I'm going to have 2 wires that are coming off, and 1 heavy wire that's going to the starter. That comes off of the mega fuse block, and then there's another 10 gauge wire that goes back into the I already talked about that. It goes back into the switch. So this, what I'm decided to do is I'm going to go ahead and route these up and then over. I'm going to go right in here. I'm going to tuck them right in here, and then pick up this set of wires, and I'm going to continue with some over there towards the starter, drop down next to my battery box. These will come out and they'll be on the top of the engine. So I just need to keep that in mind as I'm routing, as I'm picking wire lengths and trying to figure out how I'm going to interconnect everything. There are more circuits that come through here, and I think they're going to come through there, that come through for the headlights, the turn signals, and the horn relays. There's also going to be an air conditioning circuit. So before I lock any of this down, I need to figure all of that out. So I'm just going to leave this sit, even though it says go ahead and connect it, because what it's doing is it's telling you to replace wires that are in place along an existing route. Well, we're making our route up, so this is the way I need to go about it. So fortunately, the very next one that it says after the engine kit is the parking lamp and headlight grommet kit. So let me go ahead and pull that out, and we'll start with that one. So this is the parking light and headlight grommet kit. Dump its contents. All right. Well, I recognize these little tiny connectors. I remember those. All right, so we got some rubber sleeves, some rubber boots, a couple of rubber boots, a couple of new parking light sockets. So let's see. Instructions say all right, so now this bag L, so it's looking for it. In order to assemble this, you go into bag L, so it's going to have all this, but it'll tell us, it'll say it will be necessary to do an inline splice or other type of connection on the brown wire. It must be used for both the left hand and right hand parking lamp assemblies. So there is some amount of figuring out you got to do here. So let's get bag L. All right, bag L I already had open here. It's got the 2 headlight assemblies already done, and you'll notice they already have some terminal ends that need to get inserted into some plastic clips, and that's so we'll figure out what those are. Let's see what L is. So L, front light wire kit, which is going to include, oh, check it out, a relay if you got an electric fan. It's got 2 horns, and then everything that says, see bag K. So bag K was the one I just opened with all the rubber pieces, parts. So you got left turn, right turn, parking lights, low beam and high beam, and those are all coming off of this block with these wires. Let's dive into it. So here's what it says in bag K about the headlight assembly. So we see this headlight assembly, and that's this. So they leave it with this open without the plastic clips on it, and you'll be able to slip this through the headlight bezel, through the bucket, and then this looks like this will probably snap through and give you a watertight connection into the bucket. So let's see, and then they're saying tan and green wires from the main FL harness bag L, so you got a crimp. I'm going to end up having to take, I think this is what it was talking about, is that G to F here. I've got to bridge these two, and same thing with the tan wire. So, all right, let me go ahead and I'm going to unfurl this and then probably insert this through the firewall to see where we're going to end up routing them. Tease these wires out and then send them in their individual directions, and we can think about it a little bit more. So I pulled it through. I'm going to do grommets afterwards, but I pulled it through. I'm going to show you a couple of things. Back at the fuse panel, I've got it tugged all the way through, and right now I just have it touching its partner, its mate. So that's where the two go in. So one of these is on the harness, that's this one. I'm sorry. One of these is the wiring harness, that's this one, and then the other one goes to the fuse block. So these are the two that need to come together. So that's, I don't need this to be much longer than what it takes to come back into here. So maybe about 8 inches or so inside of the car. But let me show you how much wire length they give you. They give you, so as I pulled it out, I used some harness tape just to keep these together so they wouldn't be so unruly. But I pulled it out, and I've got enough wire to go to the passenger side, and then come back all the way to the to somewhere near the the passenger side door. That's how much wire they give you. So you got plenty of wire if you want to customize and route this any kind of which way, and then go from A to B and all points in between you can. So let me go ahead and I'm going to start setting some of this up and start figuring out where we want to go and get rid of some of that excess length, because I know I don't need, there's 10 feet of that wire I don't need. All right, so like I mentioned, I have harness tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right from that opening. I'm going to tuck it tight up in here when I wrap it with the harness tape, so that it'll kind of hide underneath this lip. I'm not sure if that's where it was originally from the factory, but going in the wheel well is not an option, because everything is exposed. There's no gap in between the top of the fender and the wheel well. The top of the the splash is all up in here, so I don't want that all in my wiring. So I'm going to put this I'm going to tuck it in this corner, and it looks like I'll come through the bulkhead. I'll come through the bulkhead some sort of way here, and I need to see, you like to be able to disassemble things without pulling the wiring apart, so I need to make sure of what fits through what holes. And so this is where I think I'll come through. I have to come through for the front, for this area, and that goes back into here for the front headlight and the parking light. And then the other side comes through here and comes underneath this, on the top of the radiator bulkhead, but underneath this cap. And then we'll come to this side and we'll pop out here, and then again go into there for the headlight bucket and the parking and turn light. All right, so this is what's going on with the headlight bucket. Get the rubber grommet, it goes through here, comes back out here, and it's got enough of this rubber sheathing to go back through the radiator bulkhead. So this, you just need to twist this in and get that, and then poke this where it seats, and then once you get that, this is going to route through here on this side, and then go into the bulkhead, and then once it goes on that side, then I'm going to worry about making my terminal end connection, so I need to put the terminal end on that. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing to the opposite side, and then we need to figure out the parking light assembly. So got all this, and these are 6 little terminal end connections, and so they give you a new socket, and the socket has 2 little springs in the bottom, and they tell you which one goes to which. So you got the little J groove here, and they show you, okay, with that pointed a certain direction, that which wire goes to which. So that says a long J slot. So there's a long and a short. There's the long one, and it wants the brown one on the top and the blue one on the bottom, whether it's light blue or dark blue, depending on whether or not it's the left side or the right side. So that's going to have that, this, and this sleeve. So crimping these is going to be a trick. Let's see how that works out. So now they're very specific about which end is which. So you can see they show in the assembly, it shows the green to the top and the brown to the bottom, and then holding the connector, this connector in your hand like this, and it gives you that. And you can see there's two center slots where we want the green in the top slot in the middle. Snap it in, comes all the way in, and with the brown in the bottom slot in the center, in the groove, snap it all the way in. And now that connector is ready to go. So now they're centered, and they'll find center when we get the other piece in. So now the other piece will be where the wires come in, and that's where you terminate that. So this now will not slide back through that bulkhead. So now I've pulled the wiring harness all the way up as high as I can get it, and I started doing my harness tape, and I'm going to wrap this all the way to where I know my first terminating connection is. I've figured out that I do not have any more wires that'll be on this side. The horn, both sides of the lights are here. I'm pretty sure that the air is going to come from the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and get this wrapped with this harness tape, and then that'll help us stay tidy and neat. Then I need to splice the headlight wires, high beam and low beam, that go to the other side, and give myself I need to basically branch this so that it terminates here and then continues to the other side. So let's get this done, and that's it. Keeping this nice and tidy and neat. It's tight. Keeping the wires all untangled, as we go. So that's it. So now this will tuck back in. Again, I need to get a grommet. And this, I've got this long enough to where it'll come in right here, hug right here, be real quiet, tidy. And this black, I just started experimenting with a clip. I had an extra clip, and I thought maybe that's what I would do. But it'll go right up underneath here and hide right there. Then you can see how much length I've got here. So now I brought it to where it's going to come up underneath the bulkhead, and I was able to pull the extra length of the headlight lamp forward, and so that can be pigtailed and coiled into the bucket. So there's not a whole lot hanging back here. So I'm splicing these wires after I cut the first end to length, and I just did the green wire. So I'm going to show you how I'm doing that with solder. So I just cut a little whip to go back to this plug end over here, and I'm going to merge these two together, and then I'm going to take the third wire, and I'm going to get these two together, and then make sure that they kind of like are close, and then I'm going to take the next wire and jam it in. Keep all that together. Take a couple of wire strands and wrap it. Start in the middle and work my way to both ends. And then after we get this, then I'm going to dab it with a little bit of flux, heat it with my butane torch, hit it with some solder, and then I'll put shrink wrap on it. If you're doing a completed wire that doesn't have open ends, you have to put the shrink wrap on first. But I've got an open end, so I'm going to be able to do it. So let me go ahead and dip this with solder. Let me go ahead and dip this with flux. I have flux cord wire, but I don't ever trust it to be enough. get this where I can hit it with the heat without messing anything else up. That's good enough. It's got to get the wire hot enough so that the wire melts the solder, not the other way around. You don't want the flame to melt it. You want the wire to be hot enough. Yeah, it's getting close. There we go. Let's make sure it's throughout the connection. That's it. Get this end so the frayed end isn't still disconnected. That's it. Let that cool a little bit, and then I'll slide the shrink wrap over it. All right, now here comes the shrink tubing. Shrink tubing over the connection. And I'm gonna use the same propane torch, even though you need what is this? Anyway, it's like a cigarette lighter. Try not to burn it, not to flame it, but get the heat on it. And that's it. So now you can see how both of these are, and I've got 2 whips coming back, and these are the 2 whips. I'm going to cut them to length and crimp the fitting on that's going to go onto the back side of this terminal connector. Alright, so I have the same splice connection for my horn, for the parking lights, and for the left and right headlights. Have the same one. So now what I need to do is I need to continue wrapping this. What I've done, I've already made a connection for the headlights. I did the terminal ends, and I'm going to video that for the other side when I do it again, just to show you the tool and how all that works. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this out, and I'm going to wrap this so that this all stays tidy, and I'll be able to pull my horn wire through. I don't have the terminating end for it yet, and I'll be able to then work with the parking lights. So now you can see as I'm wrapping it, it's getting tidier. So I pulled out the parking light wires here. Here's the headlight wires. I pulled them out of the wrap, pull these out of the wrap, pull the horn out of the wrap where it exits. And then I left the electric fan, even though I don't have an electric fan, but I'm going to hide this. I'm going to cover this so that this wire doesn't get corroded. But I'll take care of that, and that'll be tucked underneath there in case, because you never know. It's a good 12-volt switched power. So this is, I'm just going to continue wrapping, but now I need to start figuring out where these are going to exit over here and their length. So I'm going to leave the tape just like it is and then sort that out. I got the wire run where I wanted it. So now it's all hidden. You can see this. I don't have the clips yet to hold it up, but that's going to hide nicely. See how it is back here going into the fuse panel. Again, I need to get a grommet. Here's the headlight clip. I didn't show you how I did that, but I'm going to show you on the passenger side. And this is a ground for the lights, the headlight. Then these 2 wires are the turn signal, parking light, which is down here. And you've got a clip, some teeny tiny little clips that I ended up clipping, and I wasn't satisfied with how hard they were fastened, so I decided to go ahead and solder them afterwards. So, and then here's where the headlight bucket is. So that's going to tuck, bolt to the, plug into the back of the headlight. So now I'm going to do the passenger side, and I'm going to show you a little bit more on this. Oh yeah, I got the horn. So I just temporarily mounted my horn. I haven't restored it yet. I need to get it cleaned up and painted. But there you go. There's going to be the horn. This is a green wire. I wrapped it and then put a little bit of shrink wrap, crimped a little eyelet on it, and that's going to be nice. It's going to hide. That's what I want. Same thing on this side. So they just pop right out, bloop, go right to the horn, and that's it. So now I've got to work on this side. I've got all the wires coming out. They're all over here. So I'm going to show you each one of these connections as we do them. All right, so I got all 4 wires right here, and I need to cut the headlight wires to this length right about here so they plug in. So I'm going to just snip them both off. They're both going to get this. They're going to end up with this terminal end. So let's do that. headlight low beam and headlight high beam. These two. I'm going to clip these off to the same length. That's the scary part. It's like once you cut it, you're done. So again, invaluable. Take this, strip off 1/4 to 3/8. Strip off 1/4 to 3/8. Just like that. And then the crimping tool, this jaw has a little W shape in it. And what you're going to need to do is these little terminal ends that have two parts to it. There's the one part that grabs the insulation, and there's the other part that grabs the wire. So they don't like to sit in the jaw of the crimper. So you kind of have to give it a little bit of a helping hand and pinch it a little bit. Not too much, but just to where it's not splayed open, because it's got to go in the jaw a certain way. It's all right. I got them closed to where they're about square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this, and there's a, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a skinny side and then a fat side. Well, the fat side is where the insulation is, the skinny side is where the wire is going to be. So this goes in like this. So what I need to do is I need to just kind of cheat it and get it started. And what I also need to do is I need to watch and make sure that I don't put this thing in such that we're pinching this part of the terminal, because we're gonna distort it and gobber it up. So we don't want to do that. So now I've got it in there. This is a ratcheting tool, so it's ratcheted to that point and it's going to hold. And now I just need to take the wire and make sure I insert it to where it is in the barrel all the way. I want to see the wire. There, the wire came through. The wire came through. So now I'm going to squeeze this until it opens up. And that's it. So you can see that it grabbed the wire and the insulation. And that's a good looking crimp. So now I need to do the other one, and then we'll pop them into that plug-in black plastic housing. So again, we're going to take this and get this to where this is not splayed open. Takes a little bit of finesse. And then we're going to put that in the tool. Start ratcheting down a little bit. Now it's held in place. Grab the wire. Make sure the wire is shoved all the way in. All the way. And then crimp. Another pretty crimp. Looks good. So now we need to put it into the plastic housing. And there's going to be a particular, it's got to go in one side or the other. So I need to look at the instructions to see which end it goes in. It shows that when it's held like this, the green goes in the top. So the little clip, I don't know if you can see the notch, but there's a notch there and a notch on the bottom. So that's where the tong on this is going to go in. I'm going to shove this all the way in. You hear it snap. And if you do it wrong, well, there you go. Now it looks factory. But if you do it wrong, you got to go in from the back side. You got to go in from here with a flat-headed screwdriver or a pick, and then you'll be able to pull it out. All right, let's go to the parking light. I don't know why they give you a terminal for the headlights, but they don't give you a terminal for the parking lights. Because now, once you fish this is hardwired all the way through the bulkhead, so you can't disassemble anything. So that would be a better design if it had that. I don't know if that's the way the factory did it, but American Autowire, if you're listening, it's a it's a simple one. All right, so you got to fish the wire through this rubber tube. And once you do that, this rubber tube is a perfect length to go from the bulkhead. I fished it through the two headlight holes, so I went through here. I went through here, and then went through the fender. Same place that the headlight wiring goes through, right there. And now I need to pull that rubber wire through, or the rubber sleeve portion of the wire. Pull that all the way through. I'm going to pull this all the way to the to where the rubber sleeve is just stopping right here. I'll pull it all the way down to where the parking light's supposed to go. So this part is fiddly. I found that the length of the rubber tubing was pretty good as it came out of the box. So it's going to put the parking lens, which is right here, somewhere over here. But you have to put the terminal end on it. You have to put you have to put the socket on it, and it's got a rubber boot that goes on too. So I need to slide this rubber boot on first, and then what I need to do is I need to slide this back and pull as much of this wire out as I can, because you got to work with you got to crimp some terminal ends here that's got to recess back into this socket, and it's a pain in the foot. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this boot on here. Got way too much wire, but we'll get the boot on, and then get that to where that is pulled far back out of the way. All right, that's far back out of the way. Get it way out of the way. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take my socket, and I'm going to look at where the socket is, and I see where the little springs are on the inside, and I want this thing to be not much longer than that. So I'm going to cut it here, which is going to make it difficult to work with. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to pull these two wires and shove this sleeve and try to get some of this wire exposed beyond this sleeve. And in order to do that, once I do it, then I'm going to crimp it with a vice grip. I'm going to use a vice grip to hold this rubber sleeve back out of the way. All right. So now if I shove these in, which let's just check the length, but if I shove these in, now I got a little bit of room to work. So this is the little bitty teeny tiny little rivet is what they call it, and I barely got it in the jaw. Here I've got it in a skinny end, and now I need to strip the wires just a tiny bit. Both of them. And from what it said, the socket with the big J looking up, looking at you like this, that you insert the brown into the top, the blue into the bottom. All right, and they come through like that. So now you can see I got a little bit of room to work. And this was a trick. Trying to get this was tough on the other side. So hopefully I got all my learning curve out of the way. Insert it. And I need to see it come through. And I see it. I see it. I got it. That's it. Oh, that's a good one. That's better than the other side. I'm still going to solder it. All right, let me do the other one. Got it set up in the jaw. Hopefully it goes in. Yep. That one's not as nice. Okay, so this is, I'm soldering it. So forget you. We're gonna solder you. This one looks good, but I don't care. Yep, not much, just enough. Make sure it doesn't bead. Yep, that looks good. This one is the one I'm worried about. Last thing I want is for this thing to come undone. I don't want it. Now's the time to fool with it. Uh-huh. Oh yeah, that's better. That won't fail. All right, now that we got it soldered, undo my little temporary little clamp. Pull this back, and now you can see it's relatively tight. You know, that's got a pretty good gap. So now the boot will definitely cover. I had more room than what I was, you know, working with, but there you go. That looks factory, doesn't it? Looks good. That's going to snap into the back of the housing, and away we go. So I've got the headlight, I've got the parking light, headlight, horn, and the wiring is all tucked. Last thing I need to do are grounds, but I'm going to wait to do my grounds last. So I'm just leaving those hanging. But there you go. Look, I mean, remember I pulled all those wires out here now, and now look, they're all, even though I don't even have my clips yet. So that, you know, it's going along here. It's just barely just like popping out here. I'll do something to retain this and keep this underneath the bracket. I'll do the same thing over there. I mean, but the horn, you can't even see the horn connection. The horn connection comes out just a little bit right there. Same thing on the other side. So now let's go to the, So now let's go to the next branch circuit. You know, I know this video is going to be very, very long, and you know, I'm just going to cover it. If I abbreviate it, I'm going to miss something, and I don't know, maybe somewhere down along the line you'll get something out of it. So that's what I'm hoping for. So let's go to the next circuit. According to the instructions, after the engine kit and parking lamp kit and front light kit, then the rear body kit is the next one. So before I move away from all of this and get my way work back there, I'm going to go ahead and take care of everything in this engine bay. So I'm pretty sure I know everything that's underneath here, where it's got to go. I've got an air conditioning power supply that's going to have to come to the compressor. I think that's the only thing I have left up here. And then other than that, I have an MSD box, but I also bought a brand new Pertronics distributor that's all self-sufficient. And my MSD box is old and tired. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go with all the new, and I'm just going to trust the Pertronics distributor and the new flamethrower coil and just go with that. So I'm not going to run my MSD wires. I'm going to run this as if I'm just going to run the Pertronics distributor and go and just leave it at that. And if I want to after, I can add the MSD box after. So what I've done is I started wrapping the wire, and I just put the large lug on the starter, and I started wrapping this wire, and I'm trying to figure out where this comes back. Because what happens is this is going to be a two-way street, and there's going to be some wires that are going to come across and some wires that are going to go this way and that way, and they're all coming out of that little port over here. So I have the yellow wire is going to go to the coil, so it's going to kind of come up and then have to pop out with the rest of them to come down to the motor. And then the purple wire goes back into the firewall and goes to the ignition plug. And then this red wire from over here goes back into the firewall. And the large diameter wire that's coming off of the starter goes back to the mega fuse. So it's going to come all the way back to this. So you're going to have the one wire going that way, the one wire going this way, a whole bunch of them crossing. So I need to really just route all of these and get all these to where they need to be, and then I'm going to wrap all this, and then that'll bring everything underneath the engine bay together. All right, it's starting to look like something now. So I taped it all the way up here to the starter. I'm going to get some insulation for this because it's close to the headers, but I'm going to run this against my battery box and then run it tight up underneath there, so I have this all set up to the right lengths that I want, and I chase this back into the firewall just a little bit. So this whip, actually that's how long that whip is. That's the plug is butting up against that right there. So that's all that it is. And the one on the inside is right near it. So this is gonna come like right here. And then going to the mega fuse, I ran this, so now I need to terminate this line on the top block and put the cap on, and that'll lock that up. And here's everything that goes to the motor. I need to figure out where I'm gonna mount my coil. You see I don't have my distributor in there yet, so I need to figure that out before I cut all these to length and then terminate those ends, but that's basically done. I can now, let me go ahead and terminate this, and then I might move on before I do this. I'm not quite sure. All right, so I got that terminal end done on the mega fuse, and I decided to go ahead and stick my coil, or stick my distributor in so I can put my coil in and figure out where all it's gonna be. And so let me show you that. So here's the first connection. This came out really clean. So I don't have everything closed off yet, but I will. I still have clips I'm gonna bring in to hold all of this tight. And that's what I decided to do with my coil. I was gonna put it on this, I was gonna put it on the manifold boss, but it's just not, there's not enough room back there with the high-rise runners. The coil just kept bumping kind of into the distributor or into the manifold, so I just decided to leave that alone. What I decided, I just have my distributor just stuck in the hole. You can see it's not seated, it's not set. I don't have the timing or anything set, but that's where I decided to put my coil. I'm just running the original factory style coil, but that's a Pertronix igniter and a flamethrower coil. What else? So yeah, so now I can see that that black and white wire is coming off of the distributor. I'm going to end up wrapping that with harness tape, and then these don't need to be any more than a foot before they come off to the coil. And then the other two wires that go to the sending units, I'm going to bring those to the front of the manifold and then stop them. So the sending unit wires, one goes to a water sensor, which I'm going to end up putting over here. So that'll be the idiot light. I'll let the one on the side of the head be the one for my mechanical gauge. And then the oil pressure sending unit, I'm gonna have to do something back there because there's one tap back there, and then I've got, if I do two sending units, if I do the idiot light and then I do the gauge, I'm not quite sure. I might not, I don't know what I'm gonna do just yet, but we'll see. All right, now that's all done. So I got everything pulled to where it needs to go, roughed in. Only thing left is the oil sending unit, which I need to see what the sending unit looks like before I put a plug on it, and then the water temperature sending unit similarly. So mega fuse is done. Everything underneath the hood is basically done. So now the next thing is going to be the circuit for the rear. You open that. All right, so here's bag M, the wiring harness. It's got the two tail light. These rubber boots. These look nice, and thank goodness these are already assembled. I did not like having to do that on the front. So let's see, what does it say? Let's open up the, oh, it comes with zip ties. That's interesting, and a whole bunch of terminal ends. Let's see where we're at. So one of the things that these terminal ends, you'll notice each one of these bags I've opened up, the terminal ends are all going to go, a lot of them are going to go in the cab underneath the dash. Let's see, on page one. All right, so that's its diagram. And in this circuit, let's see, rear door jamb switch, dome lights, door left-hand door jamb switch, optional right-hand rear door jamb switch. So I guess if you had a 4-door, you could use this. Let's see what else. Backup light, third brake light, which I'm not going to use. So there's this light blue line. I'll probably pull this out of the harness. Fuel tank sender. Okay. Backup light, and it looks like there's a green and a green. We're going to have to do another splice. License plate light, brown and the brown. We're going to have to do another splice again, I'm betting. Yeah, pretty straightforward. So that's what we got to do. So let me start at it. All right, so it's up there. I've got the it's plugged in way at the back. The plug is kind of tucked, but that loom comes this way, and I use the harness tape because where the firewall pad is, that's exposed, so I didn't want all kinds of colorful wires sticking out there. So I just have it black to camouflage it, and then once I got here by the kick panel, I just left it go, and then I used some aluminum tape to just kind of tuck it in place, just to hold it. And I ran that all the way down along the rocker panel. Then I took the branch circuit for the dome light up and around. The windlace has a little staple backing that goes behind these clips, and I think I can get these two to live next to one another. So the wire goes back here, and then I ran it around the corner of the wheel well, and then once it goes into the trunk, if you can see right there, that's where the fuel wire bloop goes out, and then I'm gonna drop that down at the fuel sending unit. So now back at the trunk, I'm gonna have it routed up underneath here. And one of the things that was kind of neat, they gave a whip that's already fabricated with the boot and the plug-in, and this is a factory plug-in. It just pops in the back of my taillight housing. It pops in and twists, and then the bulb comes in from the other side and twists, of course. But what was really nice is when I did my spatter tone in this Zolatone, the spatter paint in this trunk, put a link to that up here too. I left the grommets that were in here. I just left them in, and they're hard as a rock. Well, it comes with a new grommet on the whip. So now that I've got this wire back here, I'm going to have to make a couple of splices, because what I have to do is only the left turn signal is the one that ends here. That's the yellow wire, and then the other wires are common, and they need to go to the other side. So they give them to you along, and I'm going to have to make some more of those solder splices here and then run to the other side and catch the other tail light. But you also have the license plate lights here that are on the vertical horns of the bumper. And then another thing I'm going to have to do is the backup light, which is going to splice, has to go through this same tube. So that's everything I've got to do now. It's just, and this is getting close. This is getting really, really close. So let me continue on with this. All right, so again, strip, stab and interlace, and wrap with a piece of wire, a little bit of flux, and my little lighter torch, mini torch. Heat it until the copper is hot enough to melt the solder. You don't want to flame the solder. You don't want to flame it, melt the solder. You want the, there you go, it's tinning it. Getting close. That one's good. There we go. Okay, both of them. Let that cool, and then I can slide the shrink wrap over it, and then heat shrink it, and then I'll splice. I'll these two ends here get terminal ends that need to get crimped. All right, got the shrink tubing. It's cool so that I can slide the shrink tubing on it without it preliminarily melting. That's why you got to wait for it to cool a little bit when you use that flame. But now that's on there on both of them. And now let me go ahead and shrink it. And that's it. Alright, so now I need to crimp these two ends, so let me get these, make sure they're even. Make sure they're even. Looks like the green one's a little shorter. Yeah, I want let me strip the green one. Yeah, 3/8 of an inch or so. And then this one, you need to clip about 3/8 of an inch, and then strip it. Yep. All right, let me get my crimp tool and the 2 terminal ends, and we'll make these terminal ends and plug it in. All right, I've got the terminal in. It's in my jaw. I got that W-shaped jaw again. I'm gonna make sure that these are twisted so that they don't fight us going in. And again, you got to have this sticking out of the tool so that you don't crush it, and you got to help the little tabs. There you go. That's a little long. You gotta really crimp it. And there you go. There's that one. Do the other one, and we got to do this on both sides. And this is the part that's hard, is like getting it in the jaw, because it doesn't want to. It wants to fight. But I'm gonna stick this in. No, I'm gonna twist. I got a wire in my way. I just banged it. Insert it till you can see it. Pull it back a little bit, and then squeeze the snot out of it. And that's it. Another pretty connection. All right, I also had to clip the blinker light. The blinker wire. So you got 2 different clips that are going to come in here. So there's going to be 2 for the tail light and 1 for the blinker. One for the backup light. So what I noticed was on the instructions, they don't show you a socket for the backup light. So the backup light socket on mine is right there, and guess what it didn't come with? It didn't come with that. So I'm gonna have to order that to come from here in, but at least I can get this part done to this point. That's disappointing. That is really disappointing. So now I need to get 2 of these clipped into their little plastic housing. So let me get the instructions, I'll show you that. So the first one is the backup light. The backup light is the light green. So that's this one. And it shows that the terminal, the square terminal, and this piece F go like this. So I need to put that, it goes this way. So it needs to go in here. There's only one way it can go. Now that's in. Clip, looks like factory. All right, now the other one is the one we got to really worry about, because the other one has a direction. So it shows that if I'm holding this guy, it's up here, A. If I'm holding this guy like this, then the yellow goes in the top and the brown goes in the bottom. So there's the little notch in the top, yellow goes in the top, and then the brown goes in the bottom. And it faces to me. It would be 180 degrees out. And that's that. And that is going to go to this whip. This whip that is, it already has it. So that's what's going to go in here. And what I said I was going to do is I need to route that tail light. I need to route something through this rubber grommet, because I don't want to have that exposed. So this is funny. This is the green wire, and you can see how little I've got. It's like from here to there. I don't have enough to create a whip to go from here to here, and a whip from here to here, and run that green wire all the way across. So while they didn't give me enough of that wire, but we did have plenty of I don't know if you remember, on the front I had plenty of wire left over. They gave me enough to go all the way wrap it around the car. So they happen to have a light green. I had some extra whips left over of light green from the headlights, so I'm going to use that because it matches the same light green as what this is, even though it's a different gauge. It's a heavier gauge. But what I did is I fished it I fished it through the same tube, and then what I did is I doubled it back and let it come out back here. So now there's going to be, this is going to have to go to whatever light socket I end up coming up with, but this other end, now this needs to match that. So there's going to be, I've got a terminal in my hand that I'll crimp onto this, and it's going to go into a single. You see I have a single here. I've got the other side of that single here, so I need to get that done. All right, so now that I've got it crimped, it's got this little connector, and this goes to, this will mate with this connector. So these two go together like this, like that. So I need to come in from this side and just slip it in, and it snaps, and there you go, you see it, and then that'll connect into that. Okay. All right, let's see what's in this backup lamp kit. 437 from American Autowire, and this ought to be pretty straightforward. Looks like a backing plate, springs, couple of bullet, or what they call rivet terminal ends. So what it looks to me is like, all right, yeah, we'll be able to do the same thing as this one. I think this just is going to pop in, and then they're going to have this backing plate that goes in that and holds that, so you can disassemble it if you need to. So it's got a rubber boot, and it's only big enough in diameter for that wire, so that's going to work out just right. Got the little bag for the spring, so the spring, then that, and then the wire goes through, and then the rivet goes over it. So let's strip the wire. You only need a little bit, and I haven't trusted a single one of these bullet terminals yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to solder the rivet end. All right, we need to assemble it in this order. Need to put the boot on first, and then the backing plate. You could put the socket from the inside, but it would attach this wire. You'd have to have the whole housing on first. So then the socket, then the spring, then this little button goes on top of the spring, and then the last thing is we need to crimp and solder this rivet. So here it is assembled. There's the rivet, the cap that goes on the back of the spring, that goes into the body, and now those recess, and then the cover plate that bolts it down or screws it down, and then the boot, which is really curious because look, it doesn't fit. That's silly. That's silly. I'm gonna have to put like an electrical tie wrap or something if I want that. But like, look, if I'm pinching it, look at how much slack I got in that. I mean, that's just really silly. All right, so this takes a 1073 bulb or an 1156. It's got a single contactor. An 1156 is a lower wattage, but it'll work fine. So if I can't find a 1073, I'm just going to put a common 1156 in. So I got a visitor. Guess what time it is? Hey, Deuce. Who's a good boy? Oh, Deuce is a good boy. No. Back, down. Sit. Deuce is a rescue. He used to appear in my videos a lot, but he's been inside a lot. He's a bad boy. Right now he's hungry. Oh my God, he's hungry. Oh yeah, he's hungry. Yeah, it's feeding time. What time is it? Oh, feeding time. Yeah, that's right. Bad dog. Good dog sit? They do, huh? All right, let's go do that. All right, so we're gonna cut it off right there for this first part. It's a journey. Sorry it's so long, but I want to cover everything. So stay tuned for part 2. That one's coming up next. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, if you enjoy my channel, I'd love a subscription. So until I see you next time, which is hopefully for part 2, take care of yourself.